my wife and I, we were big Shark Tank fans. So even before I was on Shark Tank, obviously as a creative person, um, Shark Tank was on my radar. I loved it. I watched every episode. I watched it when I could. When I created Suds to Go, we had lots of people saying, "Hey, that'd be a great Shark Tank product. You should be on Shark Tank. You should go on Shark Tank." And obviously, that was on the radar. And interesting enough, like we created an Instagram page for our product. The product was doing well. And actually back up a little bit. We created an Instagram page for our product while we were developing it to kind of show you the process of developing. That time I reached out to the Shark Tank's casting director on Instagram. And she was responsive and we talked and she's like, well, it's, you're early, we'll keep in touch kind of thing. And I was like, oh man, that stinks. And I was too early because we didn't even have product. It was more of just like, hey, I have a prototype. And she's like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. Fast forward, a year or 9 months later, now we have a ton of product because we've gone through the process of developing, ordering, manufacturing, delivering it. And that just happened to launch right at the front of COVID. So, bringing a mobile hand washing system to the market when COVID's hitting, it was dumb luck. It was just timing. So it took off. And at that point, it was selling so fast. Shark Tank wasn't on our minds at all. It was more of just like, how are we going to fulfill this order, the demand? And at that point, they reached out via DM, same lady, hey, have you applied for this season coming up? And I'm like, no, we haven't. I've just been too crazy. And she's like, well, you should. So we did. Of course we did. And then, we went through the process. It's like a 3 or 4 step process. You do an application, you sign your life away, you sign a bunch of papers that's like 8 inches thick. I didn't read all of it, obviously. And then you go through the process and they interview you and then you do like videos. And then they interview you some more. And then the executive producer interviews you and then then they decide. So for us, it was a little different. We had to go to Vegas because it was still in the middle of COVID when we pitched. So what Shark Tank did was they created a bubble at the Venetian in Vegas. Typically
not a bad place to hang out.
Right. And this is the coolest part. We were quarantined at the Venetian. They gave us like a suite, just my wife and I. And we were there for like 8 days, man. They had to test us. They tested us like 3 or 4 times for COVID. And we just had this nice suite at the Venetian for 7 or 8 days together. And in between there, we pitched to the Sharks. So it was cool.
And so you go through the pitch process. We only see on TV like 5-10 minutes. Yeah. How does that process actually work in real life? Because as somebody who works with folks that do PE and venture capital, like a pitch usually is a little bit longer than a 5-minute pitch. So what's it like in real life?
Yeah. So the truth is the Sharks have no idea who you are or your company is before you walk in. Now, obviously prior when we submit our paperwork, they ask all our financials. We have to include all that. So that if you do get a deal, they have that packet ready to give to your investor. And they were very clear, like, hey, when the doors go open and you walk down that hallway, like if you mess up, like don't stop. There's no like restart. It's almost like they're hoping for you to like screw up for their good TV, So that's all they told us. They told us, hey, like you stand on you hit the X, you stand on the X. Cameras are going to zoom around you, and then we're going to yell like 3, 2, 1, start pitch. And if you mess up, just start it all over. Like don't just stop because we're just going to keep airing it. That's all they told us. And the reality is you do that and you do the whole intro, you do your whole skit, which is like a minute, 20 seconds or whatever. And then you end it. And what you don't see on TV is like, it really is chaotic. The Sharks, they're all individually microphones. So like when you watch it on TV, you're like, oh, it seems pretty docile and quiet and like it organized. And that's not how it is. Like they're talking over each other. They're like arguing with one another. You're answering one question to one Shark over here, and another one's asking another question over here, and it's way more chaotic. And I think we were in there for just under an hour, maybe 50, 60 minutes. Yeah, and they crunched it down to 9 minutes. But as far as like them knowing you before you walk in, there's none of that. It's not scripted. The pitch is completely edited. There's a lot of cutting and pasting of like, hey, well, I said that, but I didn't say it to that question. Like there's a lot of that going on, but uh, but yeah, man, it's a mixture of real life and reality TV.